Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we return, of course, on the eve of Spurs starting their 2024-2025 campaign, a time where you can have hope, optimism and joy still going into the campaign. I can't answer you that question in 24 hours' time. Only Spurs can for you. If you are with us for the first time, you can find us on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're across all major audio platforms. Of course, on X. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook too. And like I say, we are building up to the start of Spurs' Premier League season. To do that, I've got three great returning guests to Last Word on Spurs. Back for what's been a while. Bless her, she was back with us at the end of last season. It feels like a long, long time from now. I've got the wonderful Talia Coren joining us. Tal, love to see you back joining us. How are you?
Happy to be back. I know, it feels like forever, doesn't it?
It does.
I haven't even done much in the interim, but what Spurs? Forgot about them. Been doing other things. I've been in like Olympic mania. Honestly, I will watch any sport you can find. I will be watching it. I literally know the rules to all of these weird sports that you've never heard of. And honestly, I went on Twitter on my ex the other day and was like, I'm so out the loop. I've just been obsessed with the Olympics. But no,
I love that. Look, I think in a way, Tal, it's good to not get too attached to the transfer window, given obviously how everybody's feelings are about it. You know, there's some that have loved it. There's some feelings that we could do more, we should do more. We're definitely going to come on to that. So maybe, Tal, it's been good you've been focused on the Olympics, right?
Exactly. Fresh-minded, I'm out the loop. So let's see what we get to talk about. But as always, I'll come with some dodgy opinions, no doubt.
Listen, we love your opinions. That's why you're here. Listen, we love having you back, Tal. Thank you so much. Joining our panel as well, I'd like to have him back on. Look, he was here throughout last season. He was here in those first 10 games where I think he was on after the Liverpool game where everybody was going absolutely crazy. And he's even trying telling the Liverpool fans to calm down and remind them, this is the Spurs show. We've got wonderful Mitch Fretton back on. Mitch, lovely to be back on Last One on Spurs. How are you, my man? You okay?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you, Ricky. I'm looking forward to doing that again this season. Actually, I think we'll do 15 games at the start of this season.
Oh,
I think.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Who should we choose to as an alternative to that Liverpool game? Should we have a Chelsea or an Arsenal or a Man United?
Like that would be sweet, wouldn't it, Mitch? Like that would be sweet in the same controversial circumstances.
But no, I'm really excited as usual, Ricky, for the season to get underway. And been waiting very patiently across the weekend to get some Tottenham on my telly. So yeah, hopefully they don't ruin the week before it's already started tomorrow night. But I don't think they will.
No, I mean that's the great thing, isn't it? Because of the fact we haven't been over the weekend, they can't ruin it just yet. Which means we're all going with hope and optimism. For those that I know listening to us on the morning commute, it's a big, big night in store, guys. We are excited. We're looking forward to it. We are building up to the start of the Premier League season. Lots of love for you already, Mitch, here in the comments. Lots of subscribers to that channel. Keep on doing your thing. And also back on the show, listen, we found another one of the Irish contingent that we've actually fell in love with on here, and he's back for some more. We've got the wonderful Dave over at the Irish Hotspur. Dave, thank you so much. Love to have you back on. How are you?
No, thank you very much for having me back on, and it's an absolute pleasure, especially on the eve of the season. It feels like Christmas Eve to me. I cannot wait, and I'm excited to get going. So thanks for having me, and hopefully people enjoy my contribution.
Dave, thank you so much. I'm sure they will. Just to give everybody a rundown of where we are and what's going to be covered on this show, just for those that aren't sure what we're going to be covering. We're going to be covering Oliver Skipp closing in, if that deal has not already been done for you lovely people on audio, where he is moving to Leicester City, a fee in excess of 20 million being reported on the Sunday morning. How do Spurs fans feel about that? Please get involved. Tell us your feelings about that. Of course, there is Spurs making what was their 6th summer signing of the summer on Friday. I wouldn't blame you for missing it because it was really under the radar for around 6-7 hours when Spurs did put it out. It was almost like the social media team forgot to come back and tell us more. But Spurs did make their 6th signing of the summer, of course, in Wilson Odobert, over the line now. I know, again, lots of general feelings about Spurs' transfer business and the profile Spurs have made in terms of their signing, age. Should they be looking for more experienced players? Do they need more experience? We'll definitely be coming on to that during this show. What does the future hold for Yves Bissouma? Of course, we had that news break back into last week that he's been suspended from this opener against Leicester City. The window is open. Does Ange dare to move to replace Yves Bissouma, or does he give him yet another opportunity to prove himself in a Spurs shirt? And of course, there have been some tentative links, it's fair to say, in the Spurs community to Joao Gomes. We'll be covering them. And if not Joao Gomes, who could Spurs be lining up as an alternative midfielder? Again, as always, we can't thank you enough for your support. Already over a couple of thousand of you watching us live. As always, you guys have been amazing on Last Word on Spurs throughout the summer. You've been championing us. We are closing in on the very, very start to the season. get excited. It's the only time you can be excited, really. So let's get in and jump in and strap in to this great show with these great panelists. We're going to start with the news that Leicester City have agreed a deal to sign Oliver Skipp from Tottenham Hotspur on a permanent transfer. Now, that news was broken to us very early on Sunday morning by David Ornstein. The 23-year-old is set to undergo a medical, if he has not done already, in a fee in excess of 20 million. We know a lot of previous Spurs managers, including the likes of Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho, backed big things for Oliver Skipp, but he just never quite fitted the Ange system. Often used as an 8 instead of a 6, the 23-year-old is Spurs' only senior club-trained outfield player for the Europa League squad. But as many know, he does need football, regular first-team football, for the reason that he's going to be departing. And we understand that Ange Postecoglou has rubber-stamped, green-lighted and approved this deal. Mitch, I'll start with you. Skippy departing Spurs. Right time for you? Thoughts on the move for you?
Yes, I do remember the days where Spurs fans would flood the Norwich comments after every game to make sure that Skippy won man of the match in all of those. And I think like a lot of people and a lot of Tottenham fans, we all thought that he was going to be something very special for us when he was first breaking through that academy and into that first team mould. But unfortunately, he sort of stagnated a little bit. I don't know if that's a little bit harsh to describe it as that, in terms of the level he's been performing at for the last couple of seasons now. And I don't necessarily he suits the way that Ange wants to play in particular. But having said that, he is absolutely a Premier League level player, and I do think that he will be a very good addition to Leicester. I do think it's the right time for both parties. Ollie Skipp has lived every Tottenham fan's dream, coming up through the academy, playing for your boyhood club, scoring in front of 60,000 people in the home stadium. He's seen it all. So yeah, it's a little bit sad to see him go, but I think Leicester will be a good move for him, and yeah, hopefully he can thrive. Wish him the best of luck, really.
Amen. Spot on. And again, forgive those out there. Bless him, Lee McQueen. The call to Oliver Skipp at right back. Lee, bless him, who's with us tomorrow. Unfortunately, that call is now firmly ended. There'll be no Oliver Skipp at right back experiment, Lee. Sorry, Macca. We'll get your thoughts on that tomorrow. We will. Tal, to bring you in. Look, a player that was obviously one of our own at Spurs. There's been lots of images being shared on social media, of course, reminding us of just how young this guy was joining the Spurs Academy. And sometimes that can be forgotten online. I think, again, many look at the fact that we're moving on somebody that many might feel is not adequate, not up to the level. But we have to remember that guy has been Spurs through and through, been through the academy, started so young. I'm sure he had parents willing and able that took him well and up down the country to get in that opportunity in the Spurs Academy, progress through that. And I will remind you, for a player that's made, 24 appearances last season, 106 for the football club, you're not a bad player if you've made that many appearances for Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. So do you think at the same time, whilst there's some celebratory fans out there that are delighted to see Oliver Skipp leave, at the same time a reminder that maybe we should show a bit of respect to the guy, over 100 appearances for the club. And when we use that term, one of our own, Tal, that's exactly what he was, wasn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, he has been an outright professional through everything. I mean, you can like him or dislike him, whatever you want, but you cannot fault his character or him. And I think anyone that does that just, is in the wrong, really. And I mean, I echo everything Mitch kind of said, but he's lived his dream. He's playing for his boyhood club. And, regardless, I'm sure he hasn't got to the heights that he wanted to here, but he's absolutely smashed it. And, he deserves that respect. So in that way, it's kind of sad to see him go, because he has been through the whole system and somehow he's still fully COYS. I don't know who goes through that system and comes out and they're still like, I love this club.
Great point. It's a great point.
And, you have to really recognise and honour that, I think, and we should all do that for him. So it is a shame that it's just not worked out here, but I think the future is bright for him. We saw how he smashed it at Norwich, and I think he'll smash it at Leicester as well. He's got Winksy there. I think we've seen what kind of move that's done for him. It was wonders. It was a similar-ish situation where, people just didn't deem him good enough, but he was still a proper COYS boy and he kind of moved over and he absolutely smashed it there last season. And I sincerely hope the same happens for Skippy, because he deserves it. He's a great guy and I think he'll be superb for them. Hopefully, I mean, at least we won't have to deal with him tomorrow against us, because that's where it gets dangerous.
Wouldn't that be Spurs, wouldn't it? Given the move before that.
No, I was thinking,
as a blinder.
there's not enough time, right? It's not possible to just go straight in. But I mean, Winks is around, so you never know. But no, look, I think Skippy's great, and I wish him all the best. It's the right time for both parties, and to get that fee is great. But exactly that, professional, great guy, and fully COYS.
Love that. Dave, I'm getting calls already. Get him make him a regular for the season. Make him a regular for the season. To be fair, we've got a lot of games, Dave. So warm up, get on those touchdowns, mate. We're definitely going to need you for the season. Lots of games to come. Dave, honest feelings about Oliver Skipp. I think for many, probably the right time to move on. I think many do feel that. With no disrespect to the player, I think he's a good player. I think for me, he's a Premier League player. I just don't think for the level where Spurs want to go. And we'll come on to that very shortly. Because again, I think there's different feelings about where Spurs are and where they want to go generally. Do you think this is the right time for Skippy to depart to a Premier League club where, again, he's got Winksy in there? I think, to be fair, I mean, that's not a bad midfield partnership. You know, Harry Winks, again, a player, many forget. Harry Winks played in the Champions League final for Tottenham. Skipp was highly admired by Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte. Whatever you say about Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho, what you can't argue is what they've won as trophies and what they've done as managers. Highly sought after managers, very much their opinion in the game sorted after. Can't be a bad player, can he, with that kind of recommendation? Dave, and what do you make of that departure?
No, look, I think Skipp should go with all of our respect. I don't think there should be any disrespect put towards the young guy, to be brutally honest. You know, anytime he's took the football pitch, he's given his all. And we can't say that about some players in years gone by. You know, he gives it his all when he's out there. He's a good lad in and around the club and stuff like that. And I think that deserves recognition. But I do think it's the right time for both parties to part ways, because as we've brought in more technically gifted midfielders in the likes of Bissouma, Bentancur, Maddison, Bergvall, Gray, even Papa Matasara into the fold, you know, Ollie Skipp has, you know, when he's come in, especially into the Ange system, he's shown that maybe he can't play this style of football to the level that we need to. And unfortunately, you know, time has come where we have to part ways. It's not really Skipp's game. Skipp is more of a workhorse, an industrious midfielder, but you do need really good technicians in around him. But the way we play, we need him to be a really good technician on the ball. And I feel like that's where maybe he's let himself down a little bit at Tottenham. But I'd also think that Tottenham haven't done him exactly any justice either. I think last season could have been a season we could have sent him out on loan to develop him, but we kept him around here for a box-ticking exercise rather than take his career and his development as our main focus, which is a concern to me. Also, where was anyone in the club pulling this side of guy and telling him, you know, to go and work on certain attributes, bring a bit more to your game to be able to help this guy along at Tottenham, to be able to get into the first team and make more of an impact? And I just feel like we've let him down a little bit, but I do wish Skipp the best of luck. And hopefully he goes and smashes it at Leicester.
Mitch, any feeling in 12 months' time, 18 months' time, we would regret selling him? Or do you feel we will look back on this and feel it's been the right move for him, for Spurs, and it does benefit all parties? It feels like the fee Spurs are getting, to be fair, in excess of 20 million, it could go up to 25. I think that's a fairly decent fee for him. Do you agree?
Very decent. It sort of caught me off guard a little bit, actually, that fee, because I considering what we have been selling other players for, and considering the fee that we are expected to get for Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, it kind of, caught me off guard. 20 million plus 5 million in add-ons is a very, very good deal for us. And in terms of, do I think we'll have any regrets selling him? I don't think so. I think Ange and I guess I can credit the club overall, have been very, very... One of the things that has been good about the transfer window so far is they have got a lot of players off the books, and they have cut that wage bill. They've got rid of a lot of the players that aren't in Ange's plans. And yeah, unfortunately for Skippy, he's not the type of player that, as I mentioned, suits that style of play that we like to play. He's very much likes to do the dirty work, doesn't necessarily have perhaps the passing ability or the ability to run forward through those midfield areas and advance that the likes of perhaps Lucas Bergvall and Archie Gray do, that have been brought into the club over the last few months. So I can't see us regretting it. I hope he does brilliantly at Leicester, and I hope he settles in there well. I think as has already been mentioned, he's probably not a top 6 club level player, but he is a good Premier League player. And I do think, you know, I'll be honest with you, I'm very, very intrigued to potentially watch Harry Winks, Oliver Skipp midfield partnership for Leicester. If that is the route that Steve Cooper goes with them, it piqued my interest quite a lot. So I don't think we'll regret it overall.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. For his own career, there's definitely a need to find that regular first team football because, I mean, to be fair to Tottenham, to players that have been at this club, we've seen so many that have come here and been quite happy to just be part of a squad and not really push to be a first team player. And to be fair, again, I credit Skipp because he has come through the Spurs academy. He's a Spurs boy. He could quite want to just sit there and pick up 10 appearances a season in the cup competitions because he wants to play at Tottenham. But credit to him that he really wants to push his career on and really, really, you'd feel, test himself at the best level, which is the Premier League, and that's where he's got his move. Tal, I want to ask you, look, before I'm sure we're going to come on at some point in the show, some of us will, I'm sure, and criticise the ball for maybe the lack of high-profile signings this summer. I think one thing that we cannot argue this summer is what they have done is move players on. When I list you off the outgoings of Spurs so far this window, they've seen depart Joe Rodon, Eric Dyer, Ryan Sessegnon, Sugion Dombele, Japhet Tanganga, Pierre Højbjerg, Brian Hill on loan, Diego Santiago has left the club, Niall John has left the club, Alejo Veliz has left the club on loan, Emerson Royale has departed, Dane Scarlett has left on loan, Jamie Donnelly has left on loan, Oliver Skipp has now left, or will be leaving the club permanently. How much credit, Tal, do you give the football club for finding solutions to the players that are departing or have already departed? Because I think it's fair to say the one thing that you feel has maybe held Spurs back over the course of the last 18, 24 months is their failure to move players on. Do you feel it's at least one department that we do seem to be getting right at the moment?
I mean, yeah, it's been a ruthless window, hasn't it? I mean, we've got rid of so much dead wood. If you look at a team sheet from 2 years ago, I think 90% of the players on there from starting 11 to subs 2 just aren't at the club anymore. So the turnover is huge. And, you know, it's super clear that we are fully into this rebuild era and a much needed refresh from the club, because we've all been crying out for that for years. And, you know, another window goes by, and these guys are still in our books. And I think, yes, you give them credit, but equally it's about time, because we've said the same and had the same conversations for so long. So you're like, yeah, of course, round of applause that it's happening, and you know what that means. But equally, it's kind of like we have needed that and have been crying out for that for so long that it's kind of like a given now that we're in this place and it's actually happening. And we just kind of feel fulfilled with that, I think. You know, like, it's been a great window in terms of getting rid of those people. So I don't think anyone can really complain. I know we kind of just equally mentioned, but other than Reggie, Gio, and potentially Solomon, everyone that you would want to see leave the club has absolutely left the club or is leaving. So
we're running out of scapegoats, Tal, aren't we, at this point?
I mean, we'll find one.
We'll find one.
I reckon it's Biss at the moment. I know we'll come to it, but he's on top of the list. But no, I don't think we can complain. I mean, are we going into the whole transfer window now, or is this just the Deadwood vibes?
I think we'll cover the Skip, and then we definitely are going to move to that transfer window bit. We definitely will. I mean, I tell you what, I will stick you on one thing. Obviously, the move to see Skip leave, he actually was Spurs' only senior club trained outfield player for the Europa League squad. So I think it will be interesting, because there was reports actually in the summer that's probably one of the things that was maybe reluctant for Spurs to sell the player, because of that issue around the fact of how that will leave Spurs for the homegrown element. But to be fair, we are seeing the likes of Mikey Moore now push through. We know Jamie Donnelly's gone out on loan. Yeah. Is this just an indicator, though, that Spurs is academy, which we'll come on to again when we discuss the transfer in more detail, is now a source where you do feel there'll be more players coming through? The fact they've allowed Skip to move on, Tal?
I think we're just at a really weird crossroads with that, because I think Dave mentioned it earlier, it's been like a tick box exercise, I think, for the most part, where we've just kind of been like, we need him as part of that quota, but we've really held him back in that sense, just because he's not really playing, and we just get an extra person out of it. So we stick him on that list, and that's not totally fair. However, I mean, it's pretty bad from our perspective at the moment that we don't have any kind of homegrown players coming to kind of be on that list at the minute. It's great for the future. And yes, in, you know, a couple of years' time, we'll absolutely have all of those super talented youngsters and they'll have all of that under their belt. But for the moment, it's pretty poor when you think about it, that we haven't had that talent, or we've got at least that gap in that window where we haven't got that to support us. You know, we shouldn't really be in a position where we're having to lose out on having extra players because we don't have the home grade depth. We've got an incredible academy and all of these things, and we shouldn't really be there. And we know we've always spoken about our youngsters coming up and being great. And I think we've all felt there was that weird kind of tail off over time. And now, for the first time in quite a while. It feels like, we're really impressed again, and we've got these big names coming through, and we can all see a future for them in the squad. But yeah, I think it's just a weird grey area, isn't it? I think Skipp's kind of separate for me. Like, I think they're doing right by him, especially with Ange. He doesn't fit the system. They're obviously looking to get people. He's not going to play. Why would you screw someone over? He doesn't deserve that. So
no, absolutely,
a chance to play that football.
Yeah.
But yes, it's damaging for the squad, but also you can only control what you can control, right? And we're in this weird zone. So also, you can arguably say as well, having one or however many less people it is that are talented, great people that you want in a squad is more valuable than keeping someone that's not going to play just to fill or plug a gap. So it's strange. I think, look, all we can do is, as long as we're going in the right direction in terms of homegrown talent, which I think we are, and everyone is so young that they will fill that quota in the next few years, I think it's positive. But in the interim, we might just have to suck it up a little bit, because we are where we are and we can't change it.
Yeah, I mean, lovely words there, Tal. Just to finish on Skippy, he obviously made 24 appearances last season, predominantly used as a sub by Ange. Again, just to give you those stats, broke into the academy, obviously very, very young. First team appearance in 2018, made over 106 appearances for the football club. As Mitch touched upon, spent that 2021 season on loan at Norwich and played 47 times for the Championship side. We do wish Skippy all the very, very best for the future. I think no one can deny that whenever that guy pulled on a shirt, he gave absolutely everything for Spurs. And again, I'm sure we remember fondly for that cracking goal he scored against Chelsea. I know for him at that time, he wanted more, and I'm sure he thought that was be one of many to come, but it wasn't to be. We wish Skippy all the best. And I think that gives us a nice point at this point, guys. Say, look, again, we can't thank you enough for all the support for the show. There's already nearly over 4,000 of you watching us live. Just unbelievable support for Last One and Spurs throughout this summer and beyond. Again, we can't thank you enough for everything. We know, like I say, we've been plugging away with lots of transfer shows in the summer. We've got a lot of top-tier journalists that have come and joined us, and it's fair to say that will only accelerate between now and the end of the window, where we hope Spurs have not finished. So that's a nice segue into the next part of this show, Dave. And on Spurs' window in general, before we come on to Odobert and his signing, where are we, Dave, in the window for you at the moment? Obviously, Spurs now, 18th of August as we record this. What are we? We're about 12, 13 days away before deadline day. If I was to ask you your mood heading into the final 12, 13 days of the window, what would it be? And give me a summary, Dave, so far of how your mood is over the window itself. Two-parter there for you.
I'm a little bit concerned that we might not do enough to be able to match Ange Postecoglou's problems, and that it might fold somewhere along the line this season. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but the way I look at the window is, I do think that we've done some shrewd business that will pay off for the club at some point. However, will it pay off as quick as Ange Postecoglou wants it to, which is next season, this season, or as quick as us fans want it to pay off, which is this season? And I'm not quite so sure. Don't get me wrong. I think we've done some some good things this window in terms of we've cleared out the deadwood, like you guys have spoke about. We've cleared out a lot of players, and we don't have the problem where we have to keep loaning them out at the end of the window, and then we just kick it down the road till the next summer. We don't have that problem now, which is absolutely good. Heading into next summer, we don't have any of them issues to be able to sort it out. I would argue, for the amount of players we got rid of, have we recouped the fees that maybe the club were hoping to? I'm not quite so sure there. But and I think another positive is that the squad is full of technical players who can play this possession-based football that Postecoglou wants. Even the young signings we're bringing in are all of that sort of standard, which is good. It will maintain the style of play. We shouldn't see the drop-off in style of play that we've seen when we had injuries, suspensions, or even wanted to make rotations last season. So I think there is a lot of positives from this window. However, where my concerns come in is Postecoglou said he needs 3 windows when he first arrived. This is the 3rd window now. He spoke all last season and all pre-season about wanting a title challenge and to be able to try and deliver trophies for Tottenham Hotspur. I'm concerned we haven't really matched that ambition of Ange Postecoglou this window. I feel like we've pulled the reins in a little bit. And like I said, although I think we will see a lot more style consistency in terms of style of play, I'm just not sure we've addressed the issues that were highlighted last season to the best of our ability. And I don't think some of the signings that we've brought in are good enough to be able to sustain a title challenge and bring that consistency that will be needed over the course of a whole season while maintaining cup runs as well. I worry about that. I think Solanke, he's got a physical presence in the box, and he probably will score goals in this system. I have my concerns. Will he be able to do it all season long across the 4 competitions that we need? But I'll give the club a pass on this one, because I think between him and if we can get Richarlison fit, I think they might just do enough to be able to sustain that to some point. But when it comes down to the strikers, they are going to need service. When you look at the left-hand side, Son will be back out there, which will solve a huge issue for quite large parts of this season. But what if he suffers an injury like he did under Antonio Conte that season? Or what if we want to make squad rotations because Son can't play every single game? We're turning back to Timo Werner, who just was not good enough last season when it came to relying on him. Over on the right-hand side, Brennan Johnson, again, void of a lot of quality and consistency that we needed over the campaign to be able to sustain, to try and get into Champions League football. He couldn't do it. And what we've done is, instead of bringing in a guy of proven quality to lay down the market to Johnson to say that's where you need to get to, we brought in Odobert, who don't get me wrong, I have no issues with the player. I think he's an exciting prospect, and I do have good things to say about him. And I think he has attributes that maybe we don't have in our wingers. But again, between him and Johnson, are they going to provide us the consistency we need over the course of a league campaign or to sustain cup runs? I'm not quite so sure. And I just feel like we could have addressed that position, especially with a lot more gusto or a lot more vigor about us, considering some of the wingers that have been on the market this summer. Then when you turn back to left-sided centre-back, we haven't brought anybody in there. If Destiny Edozie or Van de Ven gets an injury, we're absolutely screwed. And it's going to cost us at some point next season if we don't bring them players in. And lastly, what I will say is when I look at a lot of the youngsters we have, I think we've made some great young signings. But when you listen to the class of 92 under Sir Alex Ferguson, they all speak about the quality players, the senior professionals that they had to be able to lead them through tough matches, be able to get them to come out the right side of the scoreline, be able to lead them through tough moments in their development. And when I look at this transfer window, I don't think we have done that to the best of our ability to be able to bring in leaders to help sort of drive this forward. And that's where my main real concern comes in. And it all comes back to Postecoglou said he wants a title challenge. And we're still sitting here on the eve of the season with positions that we still need covered and other positions where we've took a gamble, quite frankly. And I don't think we've kicked on in the way this window that we really should have. We came into this transfer window in a rare position that we haven't been in a couple of years, where we know we needed 4 or 5 players of real quality to be able to kick this on. And I'm just concerned that the club are more preparing for Guardiola exit at Man City in a year or two's time, rather than actually preparing for next season and trying to match Ange Postecoglou's ambition, but also the fans.
Dave, we can't make enough of that analysis. I think Matty's now getting worried that he's been replaced by a better Irish contributor. Don't worry, Matty. You'll be back with us very, very soon. We'll be back with us very, very soon. We are lowering Dave's analysis. Dave, a quick follow-up question, if you don't mind, before I come to Mitch and Tao on the window. Do you feel in any way, Dave, that the way Spurs finished last season, I think it was 4 wins out of 10, 5 defeats in the last 7. Do you think that played any reasoning into the reasons why Spurs have made the signings they've made and have not made more experienced players that I think many would feel would walk into the first? I mean, what it feels like Spurs have done, and there's no doubt about it, we've seen it, they've lowered the age profile of the squad, similar to what they actually did under Pochettino in that first period under him, if you remember. They brought in a freshness, a real youth side to it, eagerness of hungry, I say kids, but hungry youth players that are ready to take on the methods of a manager. We know Postecoglou's system demands a lot of running, a lot of concentration, a lot of belief, a lot of fearless nature to it. Did the back end of last season, the way Spurs finished the season, do you think gave them a bit of a doubt over whether Ange is the genuine right man for the job long term? Or do you think this is what Spurs do under the ball, that in every manager, it feels they get some of what they need and not all of what they need?
Look, I think when Postecoglou arrived, the club did give him a long-term contract and didn't speak about that long-term commitment. And some would argue, when you look at the young signings we've made, we've also cleared the pathway for a lot of these young academy players to be able to come through and get minutes as well. That maybe we are living up to, the contract that Postecoglou signed and what Daniel Levy said when he delivered Postecoglou. However, you spoke about it there with Pochettino. When he had that young squad, and I agree, we did have to lower the average age of the squad to be able to maintain the levels that Postecoglou needs to make this system work. But what we lacked under that Pochettino squad is that real sort of that leader in there, that extra little bit of quality that we needed to get us over the line, to make the difference in the cup finals, push us over the line in the league. Someone that's been there, that has that bit of know-how. And I feel like that's what this squad needs. And I do think the results come the back end of last season and how badly tailed off. I do think maybe the board maybe have their concerns about, is he too gung-ho? He still hasn't worked on set pieces and stuff like that. But I'd also argue the state of the squad also contributed to a lot of the reasons why we dropped off last season and weren't able to maintain the start we made. But I think we're going into this season with the club hoping that Postecoglou gets off to a good start. If he does, you might see the reinvestment come January or next summer. But by then, I think it'll be too late. I think Postecoglou does have to prove a point to not only the board, but let's not forget, fans are also calling for his head right now, some certain section of the fan base. So, he has to hit the ground running.
It's interesting, isn't it, with Ange? Again, I know there's that definitive split that many do feel that he's got a lot of time because, again, he's playing a brand of football that we've been craving out for so long. But I know many can't forget the way Spurs in the back end of the season, the second part of the season, didn't really match up to the way they started that season. Of course, unbeaten in the first 10. And Mitch, you were here for many of those first 10 games. Mitch, tell me your thoughts on Spurs' overall window, in your opinion. Has it surprised you? Is it about what you expected? Give me your thoughts on it, Mitch. You've been quite vocal on your channel. I know you have about it.
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, some really, really good and valid points from Dave there. I think, speaking a lot of sense and rightly raises some of the concerns that I think a lot of the fan base do still have regarding the transfers and what has been done so far. For me, I'm trying to reserve my entire judgment until the transfer window is actually shut, because I do feel like we will still do business in the next couple of weeks before it does shut. I don't think Ange is necessarily happy with the squad that he's got at the moment, and I do think he wants a bit more through the door. And I personally just think the Skipp going to Leicester does open that door for another central midfielder coming at least. But I certainly agree that we haven't solved all the problems. Left back, I think, is an issue for us, although Van de Ven covered really, really well when he came back from injury while Udogie was out at the back end of last season. It's obviously not the same and probably not ideal for Ange in terms of the way that he plays, because ultimately Van de Ven is a centre-back, not a left-back. So if I had to make an assessment on the transfer window so far, I actually am not too upset with it. And my reasoning for that is Ange, and the reports that have come out around this has been that the club want to bring in players that Ange wants to bring to the club. And although we know that we put a bid in for Pedro Neto, cash plus Oli Skipp, and that got rejected. So we know that Ange probably did want to bring Neto in and we weren't able to. And that would have been a bit of a blow. And we have perhaps in that instance had to settle for someone that maybe was a bit further down his list. I do think Wilson Odobert will be a good player for us. Again, echoing sort of what Dave was saying, is maybe some of these players aren't necessarily coming in the finished article, and they are going to take a little bit of time to develop. However, Solanke, I think, is going to be an excellent signing for us, having done the research and had a look and listened to what people have had to say about him, and reading the articles and seeing what the journalists have had to say about why Ange wanted to bring him in the club and all of the boxes that he ticks in terms of fitting the system. And one of the key points being that Ange wants a striker that is going to be able to play a lot of games across the season, probably in multiple competitions, providing that we do actually get somewhere in, say, the Europa League or the two domestic cups as well. But of course, there are still gaps. Midfielder, as I've just mentioned, is one of them. Left back is still one of them. Do you know what? I don't like doing it, Ricky, but of course, like I know Dave mentioned the quotes about Ange wanting a title charge and wanting 3 windows to sort things out. And who are the team that have run Man City the closest over the last couple of seasons? And obviously we know that it's Arsenal. So if you compare our squad to theirs, is our squad as good as Arsenal's, who still weren't able to, knock City off of their throne? I'd argue that they probably have stronger depth in certain positions.
Mitch, are we any closer to Arsenal so far after the business we've done this window, in your opinion?
I think signing Solanke takes us closer to Arsenal in striker, because I do think that is an area that perhaps Arsenal are maybe a little bit weaker in, albeit Havertz does a job for them up front. I don't think that's an ideal situation for Arteta and Arsenal in general. So scoring goals, I'm hoping is going to be even easier for us this season with that attacking style of football. You think about their wingers in particular: Saka, Martinelli, Trossard. Those are sort of the main three, I guess, aren't they? And comparing to our wingers, Sonny, Kulusevski, Johnson, Werner, you could probably say that two of those are perhaps a similar level to what Arsenal have got, being Sonny and you'd probably say Kulusevski at this point. So it's for me. I agree with the point that we're not close to a title challenge, and we're not close to that level yet, which is a shame, because I know that every single Tottenham fan would love that to be a quick process. And I do sit here and wonder if maybe Ange underestimated how much time it would take to build a squad capable of competing with the giant like City. Or
is it the fact, Mitch, and sorry to jump in there and just let you come back on this point. Obviously, Ange is the one who's made those public comments with regards to a title change. And again, he's come out earlier on this Sunday here, for those who are unaware of it, and said that in my second season, I normally win things. To say that to a fan base that have not won anything in the last 20 years, we're a fan base that a lot of us, not everyone, I know I'm one of these, need a bloody trophy. So when you're going to talk like that and say things like that, there's going to then maybe be a shift on the expectations where we are expecting more. Do you think Ange understands the power and the words that he uses to a fan base that are so starving, hungry of success? And again, we don't want to compare ourselves to Arsenal, but it's hard that when you look at what they're doing in the market and the profile players they're buying, fans are concerned by not the caliber what Spurs are buying, but maybe the age profile that we're buying players that are great for the future, could be great in time, but there's no doubt they're buying the players for the now that are going to really go in and directly affect the first team.
Yeah, and I think, having spoken to a lot of people in pre-season, a lot of the expectations from fans are that the league is going to be very tough, and if we can, we'll compete for top four, and the cup competitions are going to be where we should really throw all of our weapons and try and have proper runs in. And I do think that is probably the position we are in at the moment. And in terms of Ange's comments, I think there's been some more have literally just been released over the last couple of minutes, and he was talking about signings, and he was asked what does he look for in a signing and players coming into the club, and he said the main point that he made from those quotes where he's looking at the person, not just the footballer. Is it an ambitious person? Do they want to come in and see the project straight away, see what they're trying to build, see where they are, and do they want to win? And it's very, very interesting. It was quite a long quote, so I haven't necessarily read through all of it properly.
We'll
but
definitely bring it. Yeah, we'll bring it during the show.
He was very adamant that this season, he said last season it was a bit more difficult when he was bringing signings in, because he was still very early in the process of trying to build that environment and starting off that project. But he said in this round of quotes that he's hoping the players that have come in this summer will find it much easier and get to grips with things much quicker, because he has that foundation in place now. And again, it links back to what you said about his quotes, talking about silverware and going about on a charge. But I also think that is just reflective of the high standards that he has and what he expects from every other managerial job that he's had. He's gone to win trophies. So, I do understand that it can cause a reaction from us because we are absolutely starving. But we hear it from a lot of managers, and none of them have really been able to back it up yet. Will he be different? Let's hope so. We have to go into that season hoping that he can do something at least.
I mean, again, I know there's a lot. We're very lucky and humbled here coming out of Utah to have a base of a lot of Australian viewers and listeners that follow Ange all around the world that have said, for example, to Ivan here, again, Ivan, I can't claim to know obviously whereabouts you're from. He said, why don't you guys trust Ange to know what he's doing? He's got a lot more knowledge and experience that you guys. And again, look, you're right. Ange has been a manager. I've not been a manager. I can only comment on the fact that I've been a Spurs fan and over, not to waste myself too much.
People don't think I'm a professional.
I can't believe it, Tal, really. Have you not seen this girl manage? What is wrong with you guys? All I would say is that I think, look, Tal, you've been on this show for the last God, I don't want to age you, last 7 or 8 years. And look, you've been here and seen a lot of different managers in their fabric, in their makeup, in their caliber. And look, we've gone for win now. We've gone for give them time. We've gone for disciplinarians. We've gone for arm around the shoulders. Where are you with Ange, Tal? Where are you with this window? I mean, I think the fair point is, as Mitch and Dave is kind of explaining so far, that there's lots of different vibes around the Spurs fan base with what Spurs fans really want. Some love the fact that we are giving the manager a profile that he wants. Is that enough? Do we need players that are going to come in and actually have been there, done it and won it? Do we need more experienced players in the dressing room? Can you win with all of these younger, technical, data-driven type of players? Where are you in your mind, Tal, with this window? I know you've had the Olympics on your minds. I've got to take you away from the Olympics now. Sorry about that.
No, I think we just have to be realistic. Like, there is a definite big gap between what we all want to happen and what can actually happen. And I think we do need to be a bit grounded with the way that we think about this. If we could walk and win a trophy tomorrow, everyone is aligned in wanting that to happen. But where we are, we were 20 points off the top last season, not 2, not 3, like, unfortunately, that lot down the road. We're not one good player away from being able to challenge. That's not where we were or are. And to be honest, for me, I don't think one window, or this window in particular, was ever going to be enough, because we're not the type of club that would go and blow God knows how many hundreds of millions of pounds and do all of that work. That's not who we are. And we would have needed so many players to be able to challenge. And it's a really shitty thing to hear, because we all are craving that so much. But for me, I just don't think we are there. And we have to be really realistic in where we are and what we can expect from Ange in this season ahead and stuff like that. You know, there's no reason why we can't do cup runs, and, you know, there's a really good chance we can power some energy into Europa, you know, and hope for stuff like that. But for me, the Premier League's the best league in the world, and it's competitive, and all the other clubs are doing great business. If we were 20 points off last season with the guys that we've got, how have we closed that gap enough to be there? Like, I don't think we're going to get an answer to that until we see how the season plays out, of course. You know, we're not going to know where we sit amongst our kind of competitors, but it's a really tough one. And it's just, I think being rational is, for me, where we kind of need to be. You know, off the back of last season, the biggest problems we had were we can't defend set pieces. We can't really defend in general half the time. And we can't really sustain a period of more than 10 minutes of good football at a time without kind of switching off and conceding or doing something else. And it's that needs a huge amount of tactical focus versus kind of bringing in a player that can just sort it out, because I don't think that's feasible either. So I think we really have to think about it. And look, we're not, as much as you joke, we're not professionals. And I do think we have to trust Ange with what he thinks he can do with the players that he's asking for. But I just think as fans, we have to be like a bit more reserved, or at least take a step back to think he obviously knows what he's doing. Of course, he wants all of those things. And technically, it's a clean slate. We can absolutely achieve whatever we want to. It's just, at the moment, are we really going to get there? Don't know. And look, I think we've made some solid moves in this window, and we continue to really future-proof the club, which is exciting, and it's really great for 2 to 3 seasons' time. And, you know, that's all things fab, but it's not really a right now thing for me. It's clear that our squad depth has grown dramatically, and that's obviously really needed for Europa and to actually give kind of the Cups a good run. But in terms of an 11, are we that much stronger than last season? Not for me. We've got Solanke, and that's it. And look, I'm really excited to see him in the system, and I really hope he links up with those guys and scores a tons of goal for us. But is that really enough that's going to make up 20 points? For me, it's not, and that's not being negative.
Yep.
I just think we're not there. And even if we do sign another 1 or 2 players, which I really hope we do, and we absolutely do still continue on the trajectory to close the gap, it should be less about that. And it's more about, are we moving in the right direction? Are we backing our manager? Are we playing exciting football again? And are we moving the way we should be moving? And that's absolutely prioritising those cups, winning something. But it's less, we have to do this, we have to do this now, just because I don't think it's realistic for us. And that's just, I think, where we are. So I hope we do more, and I hope we give ourselves the best chance at being successful. But I think stepping back and really kind of looking at it, I'm like, I don't know, I feel very rational.
Yeah, no, listen, bless you. We can't thank you enough for that. And you really have broken it down for us. I do like to say, Darren is saying, people are forgetting we are in a project, whether they like it or not. Do you know what? I feel like I've been in a 25-year project since I started supporting this football club. I've never known a time that Spurs are not in a rebuild. not in a project, not in the middle of doing something. At what point can I just actually look forward to us winning something? That's what I've been waiting for all these years. All I keep being told since I bloody started hosting this show all those years ago was that we are 2 to 3 players away from where we need to be. And here I am 10 years later, and guess what? We're still 2 to 3 players away from where we need to be.
We are.
Such is the nature of a Spurs fan. Mitch very kindly there started to give us some of those quotes from Ange Postecoglou. I'm just going to read some of those out because, again, they're quite intriguing. So I will apologise, guys, for a second if I sound like I'm going into a bit of a monologue here. And I'm not going to try and give you the Ange accent. I wouldn't dare do that. But I think it's really important that before I ask you guys to kind of summarise and what else we do need to do during this window, that I just give you Ange's words and you guys can tell us what you think. The earlier quote that came out earlier on the Sunday was that usually in my second season, I win things. That's the whole idea. First year is about establishing principles and creating a foundation. Hopefully the second year is going on to win things. Of course, it's easier said than done, particularly in the Premier League and the competitions that we're in. But there's always the way I've looked at it. It's that second year you should be in a position where you can push on depending on how the first year has gone. Last year, we had some really good moments. Obviously, we also had some tough moments. I think we learned as much as we could from the tough moments as we did from the good stuff. And hopefully that means we're in a good place. We're definitely a better prepared team than last year. Now, those quotes that Mitch started giving you there that had broken later on the Sunday evening, in which he is referring to what it looks like for new signings. He said, it's an important part of the process. And I think it comes back to what I've said often. Part of recruiting is understanding you're not recruiting footballers, you're recruiting people. What kind of person are they? What do they come to when they come to Tottenham? Are they ambitious? Do they have an open mind? Are they prepared to take on the enormous challenge of creating something special at a club that has that success needed? All these kind of things, and hopefully the stuff that I've already identified, so that when they come here, they feel it's the right place for them. Hopefully they walk into a dressing room of like-minded individuals where they all have that same kind of mindset. That helps them in that visualization process what we're trying to build. It's probably an easier process for guys, new players coming in this year, because they walk into a dressing room and have that clarity, that absolute clarity of what they're all trying to do and achieve. Whereas last year, it was all about me trying to create that environment, trying to paint those pictures to everyone, not just the players and the staff, but everyone at the football club. Hopefully this year, for the guys we brought in, they walk into a dressing room and they can actually feel what we're trying to do. Right, so they are the full quotes from Ange Postecoglou in regards to the general feeling about the second season, what Spurs will look to do in this upcoming season, and crucially, what it is in terms of bringing those players in and the process and buying that calibre of players. Mitch, if I fly back round to you, give me your thoughts now you've heard all of the quote there from Ange Postecoglou on both of those points, and what you feel Spurs need to do between now and the end of the window for you to truly feel this is a successful window and overall close that gap to that pack at the top.
Yeah, I mean, firstly on the Ange quotes, for me, the vibe that I get from him with how he said that is that it's not messing around anymore. It's a very serious environment that he wants people to come into, and he wants the new boys to come in and feel straight away that this is a team and a squad of players that are looking to progress in every aspect, in every department, and ultimately be much better, hopefully, than what we were last season. I think depth cost us a lot last term, and I have seen people mention it in the comments, people saying, that we're forgetting that we played with the likes of Emerson Royale at centre-back for parts last season, that we missed Van der Ven and Udogie for ages, James Maddison for ages as well, and we had to deal with having to play Min Son up top for a lot of matches. I don't forget about that, and every team has to have a lot of luck on their side if they are to go through the season without injuries to key players. I do think that is very rare in the modern age with how many games that teams have to play, especially when you're in Europe. However, yeah, going back to those quotes that Ange just said, I really, really like the bit at the end where he mentioned that he hopes the new players can come in and see exactly what we're trying to do. And that's him saying that he thinks that he has got his vision and his ideas across to these players now, and now we kick on, now we push. And to me, that is him also trying to communicate to the fans that he is expecting this team to take a step forward and level up going into this new campaign. And of course, we don't know if that's going to be the case until we see it, hopefully starting tomorrow night. But of course, we know we started really well last season as well. And then I know the injuries and that Chelsea game blew everything up. So you have to rely on that not happening again. But consistency as well is how you win the major bits of silverware, even if it is in the cup competitions, having consistency against any level of team you play. And yeah, moving on to the transfer stuff, I would love to see us go out and make a centre midfielder our priority, and for it to be someone that is going to instantly improve us. You know, we've brought in Lucas Bergvall, who I've seen some people suggest that could challenge James Maddison for his spot in that starting 11, playing that more advanced role, that number 10 role. And he's looked excellent in pre-season. He looks like he can do that job. And it's great for Madders to have that competition for places, because hopefully it helps him kick on and really find that best form that he didn't seem to have at the end of the last campaign. Archie Gray is someone I think that Ange will trust straight away. However, we are still talking about young players that are perhaps not expected to be at the best level they're going to be at in their career straight away, as I've mentioned with some of the others as well. What we need is perhaps another face to come in and really take control of perhaps that midfield area, and it is really going to work as that sort of, as that person that can do almost every job in that middle of the park. But it's so rare to be able to find someone that can do everything that Ange is looking for in that midfielder. However, it does seem, I do think a lot of people are in agreement with me over here, that is the area of the pitch that we are perhaps lacking in at the moment. So if we can go out and do that, fantastic. And then we know that the defence cost us last season, and it was mainly due to the injuries. So we need to try and avoid that happening again. Of course, we brought in Dragusin to fill that centre-back gap to an extent, and we have Jed Spence that can maybe step up and do the Pedro Porro role if he needs a rest because of how much football he played last season, and if he does unfortunately pick up an injury, and then left back is a key position as well. So those two areas, as I mentioned earlier, the central midfield and the left back area, are positions we need to strengthen in between now and the deadline. Being honest with you, Ricky, in terms of how or who we can bring in to close that gap to the teams above us, it's a really, really difficult one to answer, because I don't know what level we're going to be at this season, because we've seen the good and the bad of the Ange Postecoglou system in his first full year in charge. We saw the really, really good in those first 10 games, and we also saw the really bad, perhaps bits leaking out in that Chelsea game that derailed things a bit. Are we going to be more consistent? Are we going to be harder to break down? Are we going to ship less goals? Are we going to stop conceding goals from set pieces this season? Because all of those things matter if you want to compete with those teams in front of you, with the Liverpools, with the Arsenals, and with the Manchester Cities. So, you know, I see a lot of people talking about the Joao Gomes from Wolves fella, and I do think that he would be an excellent option to come into the club. I only saw very short clips of him that people have been putting up since we've been linked to him, of his game against Arsenal yesterday. But he is someone that would improve that midfield area. Whether he's a realistic target or not, I'm not entirely sure, because Wolves have lost a couple of key players this season. I'm not sure if they'll be willing to just hand over another one of them. But, you know, there's other targets out there. I've seen people mention Locatelli's name from Juventus. He is perhaps one that could come in, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't done too much research on him yet. I know how good he was when he eventually earned that move to Juventus in Italy, but whether he's still at that level, it's kind of similar to the Chiesa links that we had a few weeks ago, who we know how good he was. Is he still at that level? So maybe we want to try and avoid that, but the market's just so difficult. And hopefully in the next few days we'll see movement, and we can strengthen and be better than last season and close that gap. Like Talia said, 20 points to the top of the league is a hell of a gap. That is a hell of a gap, and you don't solve that by just bringing in a couple of players that are going to strengthen the squad. You have to improve your starting 11 as well, and maybe we've only done that in one position in terms of a striker this summer. So it'll be difficult, but who knows? By the way, this isn't me being negative, by the way, because I'm feeling really, really positive about the new season. I'm really, really excited.
I think you're just being honest, Mitch. I think you're just telling it is.
But like Tal said, you have to be realistic to an extent as well.
Of course.
And that's just where we are.
But listen, for some people's positives, for some that'll be their negatives, and I think that's the nature of supporting Spurs. That some want the results now. I think I'm just in that camp. Some are willing to wait 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And again, every fan's got a different perspective on how long they're willing to wait, how much time they can invest into another project, another rebuild, another reset. You know, there's been so many names for what you want to call these things. Mitch, just a follow-up to you if I can, because we've still got a little bit to get through here. Mitch, if the window was to shut tomorrow, what would you give it out of 10? And I think you said it there. What would it need to be in order to shift that number up very quickly?
I would personally give it, I'd be sitting at around a 6 at the moment. And the reason for that is, like I've just mentioned, we haven't done a significant amount to improve our starting 11. If we brought in maybe, say, a central midfielder that would come in and come straight into the team for us, excellent. I do really like the Solanke deal for reasons that I've talked about before and on other channels and stuff like that. But like Dave mentioned earlier, we have signed a lot of young talents that perhaps still need a little bit of moulding and perhaps need a little bit of experience, particularly in the Premier League, under their belt. So if we could add on top of that with a couple more players, depends who it may be in those two positions that I've mentioned, then that score would go up. But I'm reluctant to go too high at the moment, just because, like I said, I don't know if we're going to significantly close that gap in front of us with the signings that we've made so far.
Yep, I think it's a great point there. Jordan says there, realism does not mean negativity. It's how you interpret things. So there, thank you so much. Dave, will come to you. Dave, look, I think it's fair to say that for those that are getting to know you on here, you are not one to hide your opinions. That's why it's great having you on last one on Spurs. Because I think, again, what we want is people to come on here, have their view and not be afraid to air their view. Because, again, the great thing about this football club and as being a fan, we've all got different opinions. And I think, again, I'll never criticise somebody for having an opinion, because that is exactly what last one on Spurs is about. It's exactly what it should be. And I think as fans, what I think is that we should never, ever be in a situation where we shouldn't want to be ambitious about the football club. I mean, otherwise, what's the point of being a fan if you don't want to be ambitious to see the club push on? I think, again, people can take that in two different ways. They can take that as negativity when you want more, but surely I think that's being positive because you are striving for more, you're wanting more, which is why I can never quite understand why fans feel it's negative to want more. Then when you've got a manager coming out telling you in the second season, I want to win things. And in general, he's told us that he wants to be in a title race. So I think that's why, again, fans have different perspectives and different views because they're being guided by what the manager is telling us. So I'll ask you a similar question, if you don't mind, Dave. If the window was to close tomorrow, what would you give it? And then what would Spurs need to do between now and the end of it to make you change that number?
Look, first of all, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but at the end of the day, whatever side we all fall on, we're all striving for the same thing. We want this football.
We all want the same thing, Dave. We all want the same thing. We all want the same thing.
Yeah, we all want this football club to be successful. We just see different routes and avenues to be able to get there. But at least everything is coming from a good place, which is good. But when it comes to the transfer window, I do feel like we've let ourselves down massively. And for me, I would love to come on here and say it's a 9 out of 10. It's really going to push us on. But when I look at the window, I feel like if we don't bring in more players, I feel like some of the youngsters that we've brought in, I do think there's going to be improvements this season. I think we're going to enjoy a lot more of the football. I think we might even finish better than 5th last season. But I think we will look back at it at the end of the season and saying, if we done a little bit more in the window, we could have really kicked on and maybe challenged, or really could have kicked on and brought one of them cups home. And I just feel like we'd be looking at the end of the window, looking back and having that opinion. So for me right now, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 plus, because there's still issues that need to be addressed. And look, I'm only judging out the window off of what Postecoglou has said he wants. I think there's a massive sort of misunderstanding about Postecoglou when we hired him. Many people thought this guy would be here for a long-term project, 3 to 4 years. But Postecoglou is of a similar mold of a Jose, of a Conte, where he
stay long, does he, Dave? And also, Dave, to pick up on that point that you come back in, if you look at Ange's period at clubs, very rarely stays longer than 2.5, 3 years. He's a man that goes in, delivers the success, and then really moves on. So, I mean, again, I don't know why everyone would think it's massively different, Dave, that you come back in here, and sorry for bringing or interrupting you on that point.
No, 100%. And this is why although we see that, we might have made some good squad signings and stuff like that, Postecoglou was talking about something completely different, which is a Premier League title, going for the challenge, delivering trophies. And you do have to bring in some quality players to be able to do that and be able to deliver it over the line. I just feel like we've let Postecoglou down this window. What needs to happen to change this for me, if you can go and bring in a real sort of established quality CDM in here that might solidify us a bit defensively, help us not be so vulnerable on the counter-attack. We definitely need another left back in here. When Destiny Adoji gets injured, you're either putting Mickey van de Ven out there and bring Dragusin in, who is not left-footed, and you will see a bit of a drop-off in the way we attack down that left-hand side because he is right-footed, or you're bringing Ben Davies in, and the drop-off in quality is so far. So we need to address that. Left-sided centre-back, Dragusin, he's competent there, but ideally you want another left footer to be able to come in there instead of Mickey van de Ven. So they are issues I think that we need to address, but I would like it to be addressed with some established players that can really help drive these youngsters on, because I really do feel like that's what we're missing. And I'm only saying this because I absolutely love Postecoglou, by the way. This guy has come in, he's completely turned around the vibes around this football club from where it was when we were finished with Antonio Conte and Stellini. He's even help Daniel Levy be able to put himself back out in front of the fan base again, and I do like a lot of the signings he's brought in here. The signings that come in, they're all technical players and they play football the way Spurs fans want it to be played, and that's the only reason why I highlight these concerns, because I want us to give this guy the opportunity to succeed and fulfill, what he said he wants at Tottenham Hotspur. And he said this year, I get there has to be a degree of realism, but Ange Postecoglou ain't going to sit around for that degree of realism. If the club ain't going to do what he wants, eventually he'll get fed up. Conte did, Jose Mourinho did, and he will do the exact same thing. So for me, that's why I rate it the way I did, and that's why I say the players that we need to bring in to really help kick this on. If we can address them issues with real quality, we still might have a chance.
Dave, can't thank you enough, man. Again, really appreciate your honest opinion. Tal, to summarise and close this part with you before we do go for our final break of the show. Tal, really intrigued to know from you, similar question I asked the guys there, what you made of the window, give me your rating. And also, do you feel the players that have all been brought in, are they all Ange Postecoglou signings? Or do you feel a couple of these guys have been brought in with you that maybe they've been brought in on the club's premise, if you see where I'm coming from? Because again, I think the big thing around Spurs over the course of the last 3-4 years, you won't be telling us, you know this anyway, you've been on here, is that the likes of Jed Spence, the likes of Clement Longleft, we go with our minds back, and before that as well, players were being signed as club signings and being, I wouldn't say forced on the manager, but ultimately given them as the players and the profiles, maybe what they were looking for. Again, very well known out there. We had Steve Hitchin out, I believe, in Italy trying to get Skriniar, and he came back with Joe Rodon, which again, was a famous one.
Yeah.
I mean, only Spurs could really do that. And then we had a man who, bless him, I don't want to go too hard on Steve Hitchin because we've met some of these people around the club, but at the same time, you've got a man that actually stated, I absolutely hate the transfer window. Probably not great having a man that absolutely hates the transfer window doing the transfer business, really. But again, you can understand, if you come onto X, why you would hate the transfer window, because you just see Spurs fans going absolutely insane on there. So your thoughts, Tal, on this section before we close it. Thoughts on the window for you. Give me a rating. What they need to do to change it? And also that key question for you. Have all these players that have come in your mind been Ange Postecoglou signings? The likes of Gray, the likes of Bergvall. What do you think for you?
All right. So I'm going to break my ratings down because it's going to be different, because why not? Okay. So in terms of getting rid of the deadwood, solid 8. If we can shift those last few in the next few days, 9.5. Yeah, we'll sit there. There's no such thing as a 10, so let's go with that. In terms of income,
surely a 10 would have been Eze Tower or a Neto. Surely that would have been a 10.
No comment. There's no such thing as a 10 in life. It's just not real.
You're right. Never settle. Raise the standards. I've seen that on X as well. Raise those standards. Raise them.
If we get rid of those 3 in our realm, let's go for a 9. Oh, absolutely 9, maybe even a 9.5. In terms of incomings for the future, I'd also say 8.5. Been solid. In terms of incomings for now, 5. Just because I do think it's Solanke in our 11 and that's it for now. So I'm
not
pretty
Bergvall, Tal, very quickly, not Bergvall. Bergvall doesn't get into your 11 at the moment.
I mean, I love him, but I just don't think he's going to start him. I hope he does eventually, but I even put him in my fantasy team because I do hope that happens. However, I don't think it's happening.
Mm.
For me, Madders, I'm sure the last time I was on here, we went on a bit of a Maddison rampage because it was when he thought he was going to come back and be really great and he just wasn't. And yeah, I'm not going to open that can of worms where we
God.
are. I hope he really challenges that spot because I think anything I've seen of Bergie, his my new little nickname, love him.
Love that.
So fingers crossed. But yeah, I hope he does fight in competition. But yeah, in my bad maths brain, that's like 6.5. I think it averages out at overall, like these guys and everyone in the comments, to be honest. What
I love that one. Stream Zone Sports. He must have a really good IPTV service. You haven't met Talia yet. Your service better be a 10, mate. That's all I'm saying at the start of the season.
Sorry, can I just appreciate there's been some cracking comments tonight.
Amazing comments.
There was one before being like, can we just do a GoFundMe to get Ricky a mic stand? Because the way he's holding it, and that sent me.
I want to say, I really like holding a mic, all right? I like holding it. If I want to go for a tripod, I'll get a tripod, all right? I can do that if I want to do that. Thank you so much.
Loved it. Sorry, tangent, but that one cracked me up. But yeah,
I didn't see that one. That was brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you for that comment. Thank you for that.
Can't credit it. I don't know who it was, but I loved it.
Love that.
Yeah, like these guys, I think for me, central midfielder, kind of that left back. We need it. And do you know what? Most importantly, we need a bloody set piece coach. Get me a set piece coach on the book. That's what I want. More than any player, say your name if you want. I want a set piece coach, and I want to see Vicario tomorrow in that goal, demanding presence and not making us feel like we're going to concede every time there's a corner. That is generally what I want to see the most. So that's my overarching numbers on the transfer window. Never simple. In terms of players, I would like to think they're largely Ange players. You know, he wanted to be able to approve those signings. And I do think the likes of Gray and Bergwijn and all those guys, I do think they're probably Ange players. They must suit the system. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there or even contending. And it's hard because we've not started yet. We don't know what that 11 looks like. I think it's obvious for us, and I know we'll probably get to it. We think Solanke is probably going to be the only new addition to that from tomorrow onwards. But I hope that does change over time. But I do think that they are largely Ange players, as they should be, because he's our current manager. And he should be getting the nod ahead because we don't want to buy players to just sit on the bench and bench warm. We are currently Tottenham Hotspur, who is managed by Ange Postecoglou, who is competing in various competitions where we need a lot of squad depth. If he is not going to approve a player or think he fits his system, why are we buying him?
I totally agree. I think the thing with Ange is, and I'll let you come back on this, if you wish. I don't think he's the kind of man for me. When you look at him as a stature, I think he walked out of the Australian job, obviously national job. I don't think he's a man that would take kindly to being players forced upon him. So I think if he was forced players upon him, I don't think he would be here. You know, I've got my view on Ange, and of course my concerns over that second season. Those that watch the show regularly know of those concerns. Hopefully he'll alleviate some of them very quickly. And obviously start with 6 points out of 6 and give me those concerns out the window. But, I mean, do you feel the same, Tal, that if those players were being forced upon him, he wouldn't be here?
I mean, yeah. Why would you? He's not going to sit around. He's a very honest guy. From what we've seen in all his presses, he says how he feels. He's not going to bite his tongue for too long. No. He's made it pretty clear that he wants players that he can work with that have and share that same kind of profile, that most of all are hardworking, ambitious, you know, have those good leadership qualities and all those good things that really create that strength in the squad. And I don't think they're going to go around and think, oh, do you know what? Let's go get Dan from down the road who just really wants to, you know, play golf. It's not going to, like, do you know what I mean? It has to fit the bill to at least some degree. So I think they are. I mean, they're not stupid. They've also heard us all crying out for years and years on this stuff. And I just think 1 + 1 = 2. They're not going to go and get free in there. Like, it's not going to happen. So those analogies were actually so shit. I'm embarrassed. But let's just pretend that didn't happen.
I can tell you that as much as I know a lot of the last one on a lot of the staff around Spurs and the players listen and watch last one on Spurs. Well, I think I can tell you, Tal, they won't be doing unless there's a significant change to Spurs' start of the season. There won't be any deployment of a set-piece coach. I think Ange has made that abundantly clear that 100% they won't be looking at that. And I know, again, cheekily, we want it, don't we, Tal? We do want that, but I think, again...
I have an issue with that.
Yeah. Which, again, I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it, Tal? Again, when you look at some of the clubs out there, and dare I say, again, I don't want to bring those lot down the road into it as a comparison, they definitely got a benefit last year by having that set-piece coach. And again, you look at the fact of the amount of goals they got, not just only from attacking positions, but defensively as well, it helped them. But I know, again, many have made this point that Solanke's presence, bringing in someone at 6'2", will definitely help Spurs when it comes to the defence of those corners. So we have to hope that's the case. And I'm sure, as us fans will do throughout the season, you guys will come on here as many times as you will, and a lot of the viewers and listeners will make their comments as well, that you can bet your bottom dollar, if Spurs are conceding regularly from set pieces, something's going to change. So if it's not a set piece coach, I hate to be honest and brutal and tell you as it is, you guys know it'll be the manager. And that's the way football works, because you can't concede goals week after week after week and not change things. But listen, what we are going to do, got a little bit more to cover on here. It's been a busy last one on Spurs show. The what's next in the window section took us over, as you probably imagine it would do on this show. We have got nearly over 8,000 of you, incredibly, that are watching this show live. I mean, incredible support for last one on Spurs. Again, thank you so much for all your support. I think what's been made popular tonight is that I need to go and get a tripod stand. As much as I defend the point that I like holding this mic this way, I've been trying to get a tripod stand. There you go. That might be the new addition I've got to make. Listen, I might be like Ange and be stubborn. I don't want a new coaching staff member. I don't want a mic stand. And we're joined by the wonderful Mitch Fretton. Go and check Mitch out on the YouTube. We're joined by Dave at the Irish Hotspur again. Another great YouTube channel. We're joined by Talia Coren, one of our regular returning guests. As Tal enters, this must be what? Season 7, 6 the last one on Spurs. I don't want to age you too much. I'd love to know.
Tal. It's got to be about that. Like, it's got to be. I don't know, a lot.
Crazy.
I couldn't even. I'd love to find it, but we've got history on this show. Like, I've been around for a long time. Yeah,
I still remember the day that Tal called me up or texted me and said, "Rick, we're in the Amazon doc. I can hear my voice in the Amazon doc." Do you remember?
Yeah. No, I was just watching it, sitting there, and I was like, that person sounds like me. I was like, that is me.
I tell you, we were still moaning then. I think at the time it was in a tractor when we were still moaning. We never stopped moaning on it.
City. It was when we beat City. I think is the sound clip that was used, and that was a great day because I remember I got back straight from the game, and it was fresh. But let's go.
Love that. Fantastic. That's again, thank you so much for that support. Guys, we're going to close this section if we can. Busy show. We also want to look ahead also to, obviously, this evening for our listeners and audio, Monday night for our watching audience here. Just to give everybody a summary of where Spurs are at the moment in the window and what they've done. Spurs, again, your debate, if I use this word, forgive me, they have strengthened their attack further on Friday morning. I can see Dave there giving a cheerful laugh with the signing of Burnley attacking midfielder Wilson Odobert. Look, can I just say, I think, again, when this got released on X, I know, Mitch, your video absolutely took off over this last 24, 48 hours for, I think you titled it, the reason why Spurs have signed Wilson Odobert. Look, 19-year-old, he made 29 appearances in the Premier League last season. I think if you look at the overall data stats on the guy, again, it looks very much like a data-driven signing. Again, I won't try and convince you that he is better than Nico Williams, although the stats might argue that is exactly what that is. But again, stats can be misleading. But again, it's supposed to look at it from a data-driven perspective. He's got very similar stats to Nico Williams. He's again been really highly rated when you look at overall his stats around comparison to the top 5 leagues. Last season, he was third, and fourth in progressive runs, accelerations, shots, touches in the box, and expected assists. And as well, alongside that, he had the most successful dribbles. He was 4th in the list in Europe's top 5 leagues. Lemán Yamal top. Brejan Gruja second, Desiree Adoué, you guys know Spurs will be in the window 3rd, and Wilson Odobert in there in 4th. So again, it feels like from the outside looking in, this was a very data-driven signing. Mitch, I'll ask you a straight question. Did the Spurs social media bottle the big presentation for this one in the fields that was coming their way? Because we heard of the signing, obviously, very early on the Friday morning, and they went absolutely dead for about 6-7 hours. Either they forgot the logins to the Spurs official X account or general accounts on social media. The player didn't forget. He swiftly turned his bio to Tottenham Hotspur. What do you make of the signing, Mitch? It was a bit of a bizarre announcement. 6-7 hours for Spurs to make a signing worth in the region of, well, I think it's going to work up to about 30 million, Mitch. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think Johan Lange is working so quietly that even the Spurs media team weren't aware that we'd made the signing until it had all been done. So yeah, I mean, eventually when they did put that Friday night dinner Wilson clip out on social media, it did still make me laugh. Gave me a nice little chuckle. So it was good to see. I think my comment underneath their post was the Burnley media team themselves would be proud of that one. So yeah, they got there eventually, even if it was a few hours late. So yeah, we'll let him off the hook for this instance. But in terms of Odobert as a signing, as you mentioned, I did a video over on my channel sort of breaking down who he is and what he can do and what he can bring to Tottenham. And there's a lot to like about him. He is very different in terms of some of the other wingers that we've got at the club. He a lot of the main takeaways that I got out of doing some research into him is that he just loves to run at people with the ball. He picks the ball up quite deep when we're building the attack rather than doing the runs in behind, and then he likes to just drive at the players. He can go inside or outside. He's got excellent shooting abilities on both his left and right foot. A common theme I've sort of seen with Odobert, having watched a fair few clips and breakdowns of him, is that he will almost control it with his left foot and then take off on his right foot. And he uses his body very, very well in terms of his attacking style. Drop the shoulder and go past someone, very quick off the mark, and then quick over long distances as well. So yeah, I think one of the main things that Ange will really, really like about him, and has been a bit of a theme with the players that he's perhaps brought in, maybe most comparably Archie Gray, is that if he has to, he can play in multiple different positions. I had a look and had a couple of conversations with a few Burnley fans and accounts on Twitter, and they mentioned that they actually envisage Odobert as more of a 10/attacking midfielder in the future, even if he's not playing as much in that role now. I think he usually operates off the left, but can do it on the right as well. So there's a lot of versatility there. There's a lot of raw talent. His final, I don't want to be too harsh on him, because the final third has been a bit of a common theme with wings at Tottenham over the last sort of 12 months while Ange has been here, is that they get themselves into the really good positions, but then they don't necessarily deliver the goods at the end of it. And I think there are a lot of occasions where Odobert is kind of like that as well. But by the time he's got into the box and beaten his man, he usually has so much space and time that he is perhaps getting a lot better at being able to either pick out that pass or have a shot. There's a lovely, memorable goal that he also whipped in from outside of the box in the top corner. I can't remember which team it was against. So he has that in his locker as well, not just those sort of dribbling abilities and crossing like we like to play under Ange. So as a signing in general, I think he will be a very, very good player. But as I'm sure maybe one of the other two will mention, he is still young. He is still raw. He's 19 years old. So there's a lot of development to be had from Odobert in the future. And I personally am just really excited to see what sort of role he plays in the squad, whether that is going to be as more of a backup role. Is he going to be pushing for a place in the starting 11 at some point a few months down the line? Is he going to be playing any games for some of the under-21s? I don't know what Ange is perhaps expecting of him. I think one or two of the journalists have said that he will go in straight into that first team, which will be interesting to see. So, you know, there's no ruling out that we might even get to see him for a few minutes tomorrow night against Leicester as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, lovely words there, Mitch, from you on him in general. I mean, I think the thing, Dave, at the time of his signing is that, I think as many know, a couple of days before, Spurs had submitted a bid for Pedro Neto. That, as we know, was, in addition with Oliver Skipp in that bid, it failed. I think the hard thing, I think some fans to come to the terminology and understanding is how we go from maybe the calibre of someone like Pedro Neto, and then we drop that down to Wilson Odobert, who I think, look, for me, I think in general, he will be a good signing for Tottenham. I think, as Mitch touched upon there, I think we're looking at a player that has got extreme potential, another extreme potential player, not quite the finished article. And I think I heard you, Dave, on another channel. I don't put words in your mouth. It's tell me if I'm wrong. I think you were maybe questioning if he actually was a genuine Ange Postecoglou signing, because of the fact that the timing of, we could have signed this guy really at the earlier stage of the window. Why is it taking till now? Tell me if I'm wrong on that, Dave, and also where you are on the signing in general.
No, you're absolutely spot on. I do question, is this one an Ange Postecoglou signing? Because we're under the illusion at Tottenham Hotspur and as fans that every manager that walks in here, every single signing is theirs and they okay it. And that's just not the case. Jose Mourinho wanted Kim Min-jae. We brought him in road. And Antonio Conte made it very clear he didn't want Jed Spence as a signing when he asked for a right back. And I do have my doubts about this. When we're talking about the caliber of players that we were being linked with, Eze, Neto, people like that, even Williams earlier on in the window, Then we arrive at Odobert. For me, it's clear that somewhere along the line we have had to pivot. Now, I don't think it's a bad pivot. I think this guy has a lot of raw talent that if we can nurture, I think we've got a really good player on our hands in the future. Listen to what Vincent Kompany had to say about him. I will almost refrain from what I really think about him because at this moment in time, I don't think people realize how good he is. That's from Vincent Kompany himself last season at the back end of the campaign on this guy. And I do think, Mitch covered it very well. He's 2-footed. He scores goals outside the box. He most importantly, he commits players, which ultimately creates space for him to work in or other Spurs players to be able to work in. He has a lot of attributes that we ultimately miss in some of our wingers, like a Werner and a Johnson, and he excites me. But I think where I become a little bit underwhelmed is I thought we were going to address right wing, which I ultimately think where this guy might end up playing a couple of times over the course of this season. With more genuine quality, because last season we really lacked that genuine quality across the whole of the campaign, especially from that right hand side. If that right hand side would have contributed more, a hell of a lot more, we might even be talking about Champions League this season, preparing to go into a Champions League campaign. And I just feel like when you bring in Odobert, does it really solve a problem in that front line? I'm not quite so sure. You've already got Mikey Moore sitting in the wings waiting to play off either side. He can do that. And I'm just not, I just question this signing. Don't get me wrong, Ange Postecoglou, I get it. He has the final phone calls with these players. Like he says, they have to be good people. They have to want to come here. But one thing I think we neglect, or one thing I think we miss within that is you still have to care about the quality of the player. Odobert is a fantastic player, but there is going to be inconsistencies there throughout the campaign. And ultimately, I think come the end of the season, it's going to come back to haunt us. We're relying on this guy to come in here really hit the ground running, go and have a good stellar season. But that's just not the case. These young guys do need time to settle in. And I just don't think this one is an Ange Postecoglou signing. Also, the way the scouting network is set up, predominantly, if you look at the way Brighton use it, Brentford use it, they have an ideal philosophy around the club and the style that they want to play in. They then put their metrics of what they're looking for in them players into the scouting, and it flags up players. The DOF usually brings them in, but the players that we're bringing in they're going to be here beyond Ange Postecoglou. That's the whole idea of this. They're not necessarily for Ange, but they're for the style that Tottenham want to play. Then it's just about maintaining, bringing in managers in here that continue and play the same philosophy. So not every single signing coming in here is Ange Postecoglou's, and I'm sorry, no one is going to tell me that Ange Postecoglou said at the end of last season when he was on about and he asked for a winger that he mentioned Odobert as his number one signing. This is a guy we could have got in 7-8 weeks ago, even before he went off to the Olympics. We could have brought him in here early, give him a chance to settle down in pre-season, give him a chance to bring his family in, settle them into the local area, get his kids into the school, set them into the local area. And now we're doing it all rush, and we're not really giving the guy any real time to really settle in. And the eve of the season is tomorrow. And that's where I have my issues around the signing. More, does it match the ambitions of Postecoglou and what the club want, or what Postecoglou wants, rather than the player himself? The player himself, I think, is a fantastic prospect, and one we might look back on in years to come and say, absolute great signing. And lastly, this guy reminds me a lot of Aaron Lennon when I look at him, the way he likes to drive on the outside, put the balls across, and hopefully he can live up to that.
Yeah. No, listen, I think the thing with this player is that when you look at the way an Ange Postecoglou looks like, for those that obviously have looked at Spurs like to score I don't know, getting condescend or patronise you guys, because you watch Spurs week in, week out, those that listen and watch this show. We like to score like an L-shaped goal, get to the byline, draw it back, and there's always somebody there on the end of it generally, unless you're Timo Werner. I won't give you my thoughts on Timo Werner, but I mean that all in jest, right? I'm sure we'll listen, won't Timo have a decent season. And look, for those out there that maybe unsure about the Wilson Odobert signing, that are unsure about Timo Werner, maybe it forces Werner down the pecking order for those that are out there that have concerns of Timo Werner. I think the thing about the signing is, and I think, Dave, this is where, again, you make that really good point there, is we could have signed this player at the very start of the window, give him a whole season under Ange Postecoglou, really embed in. Why is it waiting till now? I think what obviously is clear is that, from what we're told, again, friend of the show, and again, he's very reliable, the Paul O'Keefe that he is, Paul told us that, Spurs did make that bid for Pedro Neto. So it does feel that Ange desperately wanted Neto, or despite the fact it feels, again, we might get this clarifier from Paul when he comes on here before, like I say, the window does round up. Was it only the one bid Spurs made? We'll have to find that out. But it feels like Spurs have moved very, very quickly to get in an alternative winger, and it'd be interesting to know, Dave, how far down the list he was. I mean, Tal, before I come to you on this as well, give me your thoughts, Tao, on that signing for you, the profile of signing, and the fact that we did try and attempt Pedro Neto. Maybe some would say it wasn't a genuine attempt. We're again putting an amount of money, plus obviously Skippy in there. If we were really serious, would we have put in a bigger bid? I think Fabrizio Romano's words were Spurs would not have paid the money sufficiently enough to have been able to entice Wolves to sell to Spurs. Your thoughts on that? Overall for you, on Odobert, happy with the signing?
I'll be honest, I don't know enough about him to make the decision. For me, big clubs were interested in him, which is obviously a good sign. His stats look decent, and I've probably learned more from you guys in the last 10 minutes about him, to be honest. But yeah, I think like both of you guys says, he seems like a different type of player for one we currently have on the books, which is great. And I'm sure he'll be involved in some way or another, which is exciting. But again, he's one for the future. He's not going to step in tomorrow and be perfect. He's not a ready finished product yet. So, but all signs seem positive for me. But I will hold judgment, as I do love to judge, until he's in a Spurs shirt and can see what he can do. Just because, well, I don't think I can have much value here. It's not fair to call him I don't know too much about. But it's a classic Spurs thing, though, isn't it? Where we've said this before. There's this list of people, and we are not ever going to know how far someone is on that. I think for me, though, I mean, obviously we want that big name signing and the first person on the list. We want that. But equally, and I know we've discussed this before, we want that player to choose Tottenham too. If they don't do that, they're not top on our list signing because they're not interested. They don't believe in the project. They don't believe in Tottenham. They don't believe in Ange. So he could have been third or fourth on that list, but the three above him were either completely out of scope, out of price, or we're not interested. So actually that third, fourth place becomes far stronger as a result of his willingness to want to be there and grow and stuff like that. So I don't know where he sits on that list, but I'm not mad about it because he obviously joined, is in, he's ready to go. And I think that speaks volumes, and that's all we can want as fans. We want players to play for Tottenham that really are invested in the club and want to play for the badge, and it feels like he does. So I think that's a positive. And just quickly on the whole under the radar thing, I love that. I mean, we all complain. It's one of them classic things, isn't it? We all complain, oh, we know everything, nothing's a surprise.
Jonas always got the news on everything, and suddenly no one had a link until Sasha Tivoli. Sasha broke it.
You go on and you see this, and I was like, I love that. Because it's so different from usual. So it was nice. And I mean, I'm sitting here a couple of days later and still know nothing. So it really was a surprise.
I know, it's incredible, really. It was like going back to the days of CFAX. Do you remember CFAX, Tal? I'm not trying to call you that old, but do you remember those days when you'd log on teletext?
Age me this pod.
I'm trying to keep you young. All I said was you've been here for the last 7-8 years. It's not my fault. It's true. Go and listen to the audios. I can't deny it. I'm sorry, Tal. She was very young at the time.
No, I do remember it.
She was in her cot when we started last with the Spurs. All right.
Oh, right. I wish I was. I weren't. I wasn't.
Listen,
I just look youthful. I've got good genes.
We've all aged doing this bloody show. We really have.
Exactly.
I'm going to say, look, again, Spurs have made their mark. They have got the guy over the line. And like I say, many will remember teletext out there. It felt like that at that time. I mean, what it does do for those that are obviously keen to know how that window will end, it will obviously mean that Manor Solomon is pushed further down that list. We understand Manor Solomon will make a move between now and in the month where he will go out lightly on a loan with an option to buy. I mean, it's quite ironic at the fact I think Spurs are going to be taken to court by the club that bought him, and as Spurs are trying to get rid of him. Only classic Tottenham would they be embroiled in a court case over a player where they're now trying to get rid of. I mean, it's just so Spurs, isn't it? You can't make it up. It really is Spurs. So it'll probably end up costing them more money getting rid of him with a court case than it would have done bloody signing him. You can't really make it up. And he barely, I think, 8-9 games in a Spurs shirt, Manor Solomon. Really can't make it up. Isn't it crazy, Tal? Another player expected to get the exit between now and the end of the window is that of Giovanni Lo Celso. We understand there is genuine interest from Aston Villa. Of course, Unai Emery knowing the player fairly well, and Real Betis. It's one to watch, as Fabrizio Romano has said, in the closing weeks of this window. We have had reports, Michael Bridge, of course, friend of the show, Sky Sports. Bridge will be back with us before the end of the month. Bridge expects that there'll be some focus still on the outgoings this month. So keep an eye on that. One piece of news to bring to you that we wasn't able to report to you last week is that Jamie Donnelly has not only signed a new contract with the club until 2029, he's also joined Leighton on loan for the remainder of the 24-25 season. He played 70 minutes in Leyton Orient's game yesterday, in which he was honest on the point of his first interview with the club and said, I think this is the right club for me to make my first loan move. I think Orient is the perfect football club for me right now. I want to get first team football under my belt. I wasn't going to get that during my time at Spurs in the upcoming season. So to get it at a club like this with the fans and the players and the staff, I believe it's the best place for me to come. I'm a team player. I like to score, assist, and I'll defend. I'll do whatever I can to help the team win. And what the staff ask of me, I played left back for Tottenham pre-season. I can play in midfield and anywhere across the front three. So I think many of us, I'm sure, will nod here and agree it's a great signing for Leyton Orient, and I think a beneficial one for Tottenham. I think we all agree Jamie Donnelly's a special talent that needs minutes. So we're hoping he will definitely get that, of course, at Leyton Orient. Right, guys, before I close and remind everybody where they can find you wonderful people, 2 quick questions. I mean, listen, I told these guys just privately, we're going to finish by 10. I'm throwing a curveball at this guy, so please forgive me. Yves Bissouma, obviously big news last week with his suspension. Tails rubbing our hands. It's like we're going to go for another half an hour. We're not going to go for another half hour. We're going to quickly squeeze in a few words on him. Has he got a Spurs future? We'll quickly go if we can. We'll start with Dave. We'll go to Mitch. Then we'll go to Tal. Then we'll get some feeling about Leicester, of course, coming up. Dave, thoughts on Yves Bissouma? Does he have a future? What does his picture look like at Tottenham? Very quickly for us, Dave. What do you reckon?
Look, first of all, I think the club are definitely 100% right to reprimand them for it. The amount of money that they invest in these athletes, they expect them to live a certain lifestyle and make sure they're in peak condition on the pitch. However, he's not going to be the first or the last footballer to be caught up in a scandal like this. He's got a lot of work to try and get back Postecoglou's faith. He showed him a lot of faith after initial poor tenure under Antonio Conte from Bissouma. So I think he's got a lot of making up to do with Postecoglou. And with us fans, if he goes out there and puts in worldly performances, we'll forgive anything. I don't think the club will look to sell. I think, if anything, I think he'll be around this season, and maybe you might look at it next summer if the same problems still arise. Amazing. And Dave, finally, a prediction for Leicester. What we're going for Monday night, under the lights. We know they hate us for some reason. I don't know why. What we going for, Dave? Do you know what? Steve Cooper's their manager. It takes me back to the Nottingham Forest game last year where we bet them 2-0. They're going to sit back, compact the box, keep it tight, not give us much room around the edge of the box. We are going to rely on like what we did with Sonny crossing it in for Richarlison to go and get on the head. I'm going to go 2-0 Tottenham Hotspur. I do think we're going to keep a clean sheet. I think Leicester, they've got a couple of strikers out. So, it should work in our favour. So let's go. Dave, you've been an absolute star. I will say this, mate. Thank you so much for your honest opinions, not holding back. And that's why we love having you on here, mate. So keep doing the same thing. Never change. And like I say, this is the whole purpose of this show. If people can't come on here and give what they believe is their honest opinion, why come on the show? I think the whole point of it is that there's no point of being a nodding dog or a sheep. At the end of the day, we're all here to express our views and how we see things. And I think that's what we love about Spurs fans. We all have different views about how we get to where we want to go. But our destination is all the same. We all want the same thing. So, Dave, I can't thank you enough, mate. Thank you so much. Mitch, I'm going to come to... Oh, and a reminder, obviously, Dave, where can I check out what you're doing, your content? Where can I find you, Dave? Yeah, everyone, you can find me out over at the Irish Hotspur. Tune in. I'll have match day content tomorrow, so that'll be fun. And I'm a lot more joyous around match day. I know a lot of people are probably going to think Dave's the Grinch. That's what they'll start nicknaming me on here in future. However, I hope people sort of maybe have an understanding where I'm coming from. Oh, absolutely. I'm using Postecoglou's words, and that's the barometer that, I'm measuring my expectations of. So hopefully people can understand that. Amen. Dave, we love you. Thank you so much, mate. We'll see you back very, very soon. Mitch, has come over to you. We actually are hearing news coming through that Destiny Udogie is expected to be ready to start at left back against Leicester City, despite missing most of the pre-season. That's coming from Dan Kilpatrick over at the Standard. Really important news, I think, coming into that game. How do you feel about it for you, Mitch? We're hours away. Thoughts on that for you? And also, Yves Bissouma, does he have a future? Those couple of quick questions, if you don't mind, Mitch.
Yeah, so I'll start with the Bissouma stuff as well. I think very, very similar viewpoint to what Dave mentioned. I do think that Ange has left the door open for him to have a sort of redemption arc and work his way back into, most importantly, I think the word he used was trust. So build that trust back up, not only between Bissouma himself and Ange Postecoglou, but between his teammates as well. Because, as a team at that level, you all expect the highest standards of each other. You all expect the players to be role models for for the fans and for the younger players in that squad that we have as well. So I think he definitely made the right decision to leave him out of the game against Leicester. And hopefully, I think Ange also mentioned that he was very, very apologetic. So for me, I've got no problem in him trying to work his way back in. Of course, if he is just poor on the pitch all season, then that's a completely different conversation to have in terms of that. But Ange is very disciplined with his players. He doesn't really take the nonsense. He doesn't seem like the guy. So if Bissouma is willing to work to get back into his good books, I have absolutely no problem with him working his way back into the team if that's what he wants. And then in terms of Leicester, I am going to go with a 3-0 win. I agree with Dave. I think we're going to keep a clean sheet. I'm so excited to watch our strongest back four in action all together, hopefully. Brilliant news about Dogi, as you just mentioned, being ready to start. So, yeah, I'm really, really excited for the game. I read that Jamie Vardy is out, and he gives me nightmares sometimes. He just randomly pops up in my dreams.
Totally agree with Mitch.
Scares me a little bit, even at his late stage of his career now. So yeah, I think he's out. But yeah, I think we'll start positively. I think we'll start on the front foot. I think Ange will not have much to do to motivate the players to get off to a winning start, and particularly with there not really being any major upsets in this first weekend of the season. Let's hope to keep that theme going, and 3 points to start with, and build on that, and see what is to come in the rest of the transfer window, and then the games to come after that.
Oh, man, Mitch, it's been an absolute pleasure having you back on the show. Like I said, I know you've gone and started up your own venture in these last 12, 18 months, which are going fairly well. Mitch, where can we find the content you're now doing? All things Spurs is all kicking off around here. Mitch, where can they find you?
It is, yes. So I've had the YouTube channel for a little while now, but I've only really started seriously putting some effort into it over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm over on YouTube, just Mitch_Fretton. And if you fancy coming and check in my videos out, I've just released a predicted lineup, a full one for tomorrow's game. So if you fancy checking that video out, feel free. But Ricky, thank you as ever for inviting me on. It's been a great hour and a half chat with everyone, with Tal and Dave as well, as it always is. So really, really enjoyed it, and thank you very much.
Bless you, mate. I'm so sorry. Matt did it so well. You took you just an hour a couple of weeks ago. I've already failed you and taken you over an hour and a half mark. Hence my unbelievable, unprecedented timing skills here, which need working on, that is for sure. Well, thank you, mate. And we'll see you during the season. You're a star. Tal, closing it with you. They're not sure about Bissouma's future, but they know about your future here, which is the most important thing I want to know. Listen, we know you love it. We love having you on here. Tal entering again. We should be getting some kind of medals made for having a last foot on Spurs for as long as Tal has done, for what's gone on these shows since we've been here.
My own trophy cabinet. Spurs aren't getting one. Give me a last foot on Spurs trophy cabinet.
When they start bringing them in, we'll start bringing them in for our guests. I think that'll be the time. Tal, bless you. Thoughts on Bissouma for you, and yeah, I'd love to know from you. Prediction for tomorrow. I know you hate doing predictions.
I actually do.
Thoughts on tomorrow. You don't have to give me a prediction. Thoughts on tomorrow.
No, I'll do it. I actually feel quite strongly about Bissouma. Sorry, everyone. I know it's the end, but he's a walking red flag. He's a proper red flag, and I just think he's an idiot. He is, and I just don't think he's the promising player that we thought he was. And I think I've spoken about it before, but I just think it's one thing to record it, but on your own phone is so dumb. It's not like a mate has sold him out. He physically did it himself, and I just think it's quite silly. But he's had this party boy reputation from the start, and unfortunately, he's just not grown out of it, and he continues to be a bit unprofessional. I just think he looks a bit uninterested after time. But since that red card, he's just not been the same player that we.
What happened, Tal, from that Luton game onwards? How do you explain?
We've discussed this before. I know it's been a big topic when I've been on here, and I don't have the answer. I know we spoke about him having malaria and all of those things in between, but I don't know what it is. Not here to call it out, except the fact he's not been the player that we thought he was, and we've seen nowhere near enough positives, in my opinion, to defend him all the time. So look, I'm really happy that Ange just left the door open for him, and I hope he figures himself out and is willing to work and put the performances in to deserve kind of gaining our stuff back. But for me, fundamentally, I just want to see a great player that we know, and also someone that can just set an example for the youngsters, because we need that. And in terms of Leicester, I'm going to go 3-1.
Okay.
That's my prediction. I do think, though, there is a chance it could be 3-2. I think we're going to win. but I don't think we're going to make it easy. I just
I love the fact no one's backing us for a clean sheet, are they?
No, I'm not. No, these guys did. They were optimistic.
They did. Sorry.
Not. It's
My
not
apologies. My apologies.
Don't get me wrong. I hope it happens. I just don't
Yeah,
think it's happening. Look, I've been to many Leicester away games before, and it's a rowdy little stadium. That they, especially first game back in the Premier League, I think they're going to make it quite hostile. I think it'll be tricky. I hope we, show up, just show we're the better side, and make it as easy as possible. But it's Tottenham, guys. It's Tottenham. Gonna win, but fingers crossed it's not as difficult as it could be.
Oh, listen, let's hope, like I say, we're in for a good season. I'll tell you what, we've covered it all tonight on here. I think one thing you can't disagree on, and like I say, again, I know Spurs has different views and the avenues and what they want to get to, is that we all do want, as I've said during the show, we all want the same thing. We've all got different ways to navigate and get there and how we want to do that and, the ways in which we want to get there. But please don't be, again, despondent to the fact that everybody wants success. And again, I will say this, for a lot of the other, Spurs affiliated channels out there, everyone does want success. They've just got their own viewpoint and delivery as to how we get there. But listen, I will tell you one thing. When Spurs do win that elusive trophy, we're all going to come together and it's going to be one hell of a party. It's going to be absolutely incredible. And it'll be people that you thought will never, ever come together in your life that will come together because Spurs have gone there and won a trophy. I want to say a massive thank you. It's been over 9,000 of you plus that have been watching this show on Instagram, on X, on YouTube, on Facebook. We genuinely can't thank you enough for all your unwavering support for this show. These guys have been amazing. You've been amazing for your contributions. A reminder, look, I'm not one, as you guys know on this show, to really push for subscribing, push for likes. It's not the way we do things on here. If you enjoy the content, you like the content, please feel free to check us out, to subscribe. We've got lots and lots of content coming your way, as you always know we have done over the course of the last 8-9 years. Hopefully, we never very rarely let you down. We've got lots to come. Transfer, obviously, shows coming your way. Of course, we're covering the season for you, the FA Cup, the League Cup. As long as they take us so far, we'll take you so far as well with the Premier League as well. You're going to see these wonderful, beautiful faces on your screen more often as well. I want to say a massive thank you to our watching audience, to these wonderful panelists, to Mitch, to the Irish Hotspur Dave over there, to the wonderful Talia Coren. Guys and girls, we have been the last one on Spurs. Please keep well, keep safe. We're back before you know it.